Hello everyone and welcome to the third game we'll be showing from round 2 of this year's FIDE Candidates Tournament. It is a fine matchup and a fine game. Nepomniachtchi, who won not the previous Candidates Tournament but also the one before that against Alireza Firouzja, already his second Candidates Tournament. And well, last time Alireza faced Nepo in the Candidates Tournament in 2022, he lost to Nepo with white and black respectively. But now he's gonna try to bounce back. He has the black pieces in this one. And let's see if he can get at least half a point away from Nepo, or is Nepo just a player that Alireza has problem facing in the classical time format. So let's check it out. Nepo with the white pieces opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, knight to f3, we have knight to c6 and bishop to b5, going for the Ruy Lopez, and knight to f6. Again, we have the Berlin defense, d3 and bishop to c5. And also I have prepared a nice photo of this matchup, so just give me a second. There we go. Let me load that up. Yeah, there you have it. Very nice. Not sure if this is the position. Okay, not the position. There a few more moves have been played. But yeah, you can see them deep in thought. Okay, Alireza maybe deep in thought. Nepo maybe thinking about something else. But as you'll see in this game, it's as if Nepo was never even thinking about the game for some reason. We have pawn to c3, castles, and now pawn to d5. Now this is a very rare move. It has been played before. D6 is pretty much what's usually played here. But d5 has been used by, let's say, Levon Aronian. He played it against Magnus Carlsen in 2016 in the Grandchester Rapid Tournament in Paris and lost the game. And not a lot of success has been had with the black pieces here with this pawn to d5 move, but that actually makes it perfect for the Candidates Tournament because, well, maybe players are just very unlikely to suspect that someone will prepare it for the Candidates Tournament. So, okay, pawn to d5. And Nepo says, all right, show me why you've played this. E captures on d5, we have queen captures on d5, and now bishop to c4. Just attacking the queen. As long as the bishop is here, you always have to worry about something like bishop captures and f2 check, followed by queen captures on b5. It's just better placed on c4. So, okay, Alireza goes back, queen to d8, and now pawn to b4. Attacks the bishop, bishop back to e7, and now knight to b to d2. Nicely continuing, but Alireza has pressure on d3, and he plays bishop to f5. Adds more pressure to the d3 pawn, and it is a backwards pawn, cannot be advanced to d4 all that easily. So queen to c2, nicely defending. First after knight b to d2, a6 was played, not bishop to f5 right away. First a6, a4, and only now bishop to f5. Forgot to include that, queen to c2, and now knight to d5. And the reason Alireza went for this knight to d5 move, I believe, is he wanted to get some sort of a tricky line. If Nepo goes after the e5 pawn, which is the pretty much the usual way someone would play, you could play knight b6, attack the bishop, and once the pawn is captured, let's say captures, and captures, you just play queen to d7, and you gave up a pawn for some rapid development. You have some nasty pressure on that d3 pawn. There's a threat of knight captures on c4 as the pawn here is pinned. You can easily get the rooks into the game. So probably a position Alireza has thoroughly analyzed. But Jan not interested in that. Plus, of course, he knows that Alireza probably has everything prepared for that. Plays knight to e4 and now bishop to g4, threatening to take the knight. And the position has been reached before quite a few times, and there are no moves here. Here queen to a2 was played. Some other moves, a5 was played. Raunak Sadvani played it against Maxim Chigaev, and the game ended in a draw. Also, Pavel Elyanov played queen to d1 here against Peter Svidler. Also, the game ended in a draw. But here we have queen to a2, and now still not a new move. There is one game where this was played, and we're gonna discuss that. So knight to b6 now, as the knight on d5 is hanging, knight to b6 and bishop to b3. Bishop captures on f3, g captures, and now, okay, white's position is ruined, but it's actually okay to play this, and it has been played before. Queen to d7 is what was played here. Maxim Rochstein played it against Vasif Durar Bailey in the 2022 FIDE Olympiad, but he also lost this game after queen to d7. But Alireza boldly goes for queen captures on d3, and it is now as of move 16 that we have a completely new game. And queen captures on d3 is by far the strongest move recommended by the engine. So Alireza is well within his preparation. We have king to g2 by Nepo, and now Alireza goes queen back to d7. We have rook to d1, attacking the queen, and queen to e8. And you just don't put a queen to e8 unless you have this prepared. But also, it's kind of hard to say because up until this queen to e8 move, Alireza basically spent 0 time, and now he spent some 20 minutes on queen to e8. And now it's actually Nepo who's up on the clock. It's an hour and 48 minutes versus an hour and 38 minutes. So that's just kind of a player that Nepo is. He runs into preparation in a candidates tournament, and he just plays faster than you. I mean, that's just something else. So okay, pawn to h4. He offers a pawn, but of course you don't capture that. The idea is either to put a knight on g5 and have some nasty pressure on f7, or even just h5, h6, and to go after the black king. Because if you capture, then look at this, rook to h1, and that's pretty much it. You move the bishop, already queen to c2 with some nasty threats. Knight f6 check, followed by queen captures on h7 checkmate. Or if you stop that with knight d7, even knight to d6, just a queen threat with also a checkmate threat hanging in the air. So after h4, knight to c8 by Alireza, remaneuvering the knight over to d6, and now pawn to h5. We have king to h8, and now pawn to h6. So it's as if Nepo checked this line maybe 5 years ago, and he created a mental map in his mind saying, okay, if black plays dead, just go h4, h5, h6, and that's perfectly fine. And indeed it is perfectly fine, but Alireza plays the strongest pawn to g5, and yes, this does open up the black king's position, but if g4 is played, it will also open up the white king's position. So what can Nepo do here? Well, he plays queen to d2, and even though you can capture a pawn here, it would be a bit premature because you run into the pin of rook to g8, and there's still no good way to take advantage of anything here. Your queen is basically out of the game, and you still have to play something like c4, put the bishop on b2 to control this diagonal, and you don't want to lock your queen on a2, so of course you have to move the queen first. That's why Nepo brings the queen into the game first. Knight to d6, offering a trade of knights, and now just bishop to b2, just playing as complicated moves as possible. Yeah, now you have to be very careful, of course, as long as your king is on h8. From experience, you know that tactics work in white's favor. And you have two good options here. You have more good options, but you either play f6, you play a close position where you keep your king on h8 and just make the e5 pawn more solid, or you actually trade knight captures, f captures, and go f5. In hopes of opening up the f file, and if b5, which is the strongest reply for white, let's say knight a5 and now bishop to a2, okay, black plays f captures on e4, and it's a very, very complicated position that both white and black can enjoy. However, Alireza played knight to f5. He's going for some very nasty tricks here with knight to h4, but Nepo very happily goes for queen to d7. And he didn't spend much on this queen to d7 move, some 5 minutes on the clock, and it's Alireza to play. He plays knight to h4, which he prepared, and now the idea is that he wants to capture on f3, but not really, because Nepo allows it. He plays king to f1. Had Nepo played king to g3, do you see what Alireza's plan was with this whole maneuver and allowing queen to d7? Alireza's plan was knight to d4. And now the rook's defense of the queen is cut off, so you have to trade queens, otherwise you're going to blunder. So queen captures on e8, and now there's this nice Zwischenzug knight to e2 check, which forces the king away from the defense of the f3 pawn. King h2, now you play rook a captures on e8, so this rook can remain here guarding the f7 pawn, and black's position is very solid. The f3 pawn will fall, f5 is coming, and everything is coming. You can even play f6 maybe to make the position more solid, but all in all, black is better here, objectively probably even winning. So yeah, a lot of moves are possible here, but Nepo, of course, not interested. He just plays king to f1 without even spending time. He played it in less than a minute, and now Alireza strikes with pawn to f5. We have knight to g3, and knight captures on f3. And finally, well, this is sort of a position where you either capture this pawn or you maybe try to increase the tension a little bit with something like rook to f6. Maybe you get the rook into the game, but it's not easy. Alireza decided to go for the pawn, and now it's Nepo's turn to go for the initiative. Pawn to b5. We have pawn to f4. Alireza wants to make this a race. Knight to e4, and now he goes knight to a5. And this is the biggest problem for Alireza in this position. The time really isn't an issue here. It's 35 minutes for Nepo, 24 minutes for Alireza, and he has to abandon all hopes of getting more than a draw here. As even though Alireza has the black pieces against a two-time winner of the candidates tournament, Alireza is playing this for a win. And he has to avoid that and play queen to h5. He has to give up the knight here, and after the knight is captured, it's just going to be a nice draw by threefold repetition. You have to go to e1, and after you go to e1, knight to f3 with check. Now you can't go, of course, to e2, because the knight to d4 a double check and you're going to lose the game, so you have to go back, and then it's just a nice draw by repetition, and that's pretty much it. However, Alireza played knight to a5, and he spent pretty much all of his time. So he started with 25 minutes, now it's 8 minutes after knight to a5, and it's not objectively best, but yeah, it's still okay. You still can't lose this by force, and he still wants to win this position. Now we have bishop to e6, and here only one move saves Alireza from losing the game. It's definitely a critical position. So what would you play here, just for fun, for target practice? Feel free to pause the video and try to find the only way for Alireza to continue this game properly while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this. Alireza did not play it over the board, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is pawn to g4. I actually thought Alireza would play this, as he spent so much time on this knight to a5 move that I thought he actually calculated all of this, but it seems that it's much more complicated than anyone would have thought, because there are other candidate moves. Of course, you might consider capturing, you might consider attacking the queen, you can literally consider any move here. But g4 is the move that draws, and the point is that if you trade queens, let's say queen captures and rook captures, now the position is just awesome for black. I mean, you can't even capture the pawn because of this knight h2 check winning the bishop. So the pawns stay intact, and I mean, you have to be very careful here. You have to first move the bishop, then figure out what you're gonna do. Okay, the bishop will at some point come alive, but yeah, not too impressive for white. So what would actually happen after this g4 move is probably bishop to a3. You would put pressure on the bishop here. Of course, if the bishop moves, then you're just going to checkmate the black king with queen to g7. That's why this bishop to e7 move was so important. And after queen captures on d7, you're going to play rook captures on d7, and now after, let's say, bishop captures on a3, rook captures on a3, now rook 8 to e8, attack the bishop will move, let's say, to f7, now rook to d8, you trade rooks, and let's say rook to a1, knight to h4, and the game continues with, black having a reasonable game. Still, white is better, but you can play this. However, after this bishop to e6 move, Alireza played queen to g6. He gave up the bishop in order to eliminate the h6 pawn and go for the attack. So, okay, Nepo captured it. He didn't spend a lot of time, less than 2 minutes on this capture. And, okay, the knight is hanging, but you cannot take due to checkmate. So queen captures on h6. And now Alireza, again, has some very unpleasant moves, like, for example, rook 8 to e8. If that happens, then also the bishop will hang. So Nepo just plays bishop to f7, just a nice cold-blooded move. He doesn't care about anything, just controls e8. What are you going to play here? And Alireza has to figure out, is queen to h1 anything? Well, it is a fair attempt, and I will show it, but again, it doesn't do all that much. For example, knight g1, rook captures, queen captures on e4 check, king to f1, queen to d3 with check, king to g2, and now queen to f5, going for the bishop here, and also maybe for queen g4 check, but there's bishop e6, covers everything, and after f3 check, you're going to move the king, and after queen to f4 check, you're going to play rook to g3, and no more threats here. it is time to play c4, open up the position, and that's it. Once c4 is played, the game is over. If rook to f6, you don't care, you just move the king to g1, there's nothing here. So after bishop to f7, queen to h3 check was played, king to e2, and now queen to f5, going after the bishop and the knight. But luckily for Nepo, there is one move that covers both of those weak spots, bishop to d5, and now, of course, rook 8 to e8, going after the white queen. Queen captures on c7 and queen to g4, threatening some very nasty discoveries. And here, Jan just boldly goes where no man has gone before in a candidates tournament and plays king to d3. Looks crazy, but it can be done, and the Nepo, of course, does it. With rook to d8 going after the king, pawn to c4. Defends the bishop and unleashes the real monster of this game that was laying dormant here on b2, but now this bishop cannot be opposed. And there are terrible threats in this position. For example, let's say you play a silly move like rook c8, already white can sacrifice the queen for a beautiful double bishop checkmate. Rook f6, bishop captures on f6, and that's it. The black king has no squares. The two bishops reign supreme here. So after c4, Alireza has to do something about that bishop pair. He plays rook captures on d5 with check, c captures, and queen to h3. Again, threatens some nasty discoveries, but now comes knight to g3. Just offering a piece and saying, well, there's there's nothing for you to do here. You could also play bishop captures on e5, but then knight captures on e5 removes the giver of the check while giving check, and now you blunder the game. So Nepo's idea of knight to g3 is actually much, much better, and Alireza goes knight to c4. It's a very tricky move, where, okay, there are many possibilities, and you could even take the knight with the king. If you play king captures on c4, then rook to c8 wins the white queen, but you can still play it with pawn to b6. I mean, and you're still going to be better. If rook captures, pawn captures, you have a passed pawn here. The other passed pawn also marches forward. The problem is there are no more brilliancy prizes in tournaments, especially not in a FIDE candidates tournament. You know, in the olden days, every round, the chief arbiter had the opportunity to give a brilliancy prize to one of the players if they played a brilliant game, and they'd get a nice trophy. They'd also get extra money for the brilliancy. But nowadays we don't have that, so players don't really care for that stuff. So instead, just queen captures on c4. This, okay, does move the queen back a little bit, and it allows Alireza back into the game, but not by a lot. F captures on g3. Now F captures on g3, and A captures on b5. A captures and rook to c8, putting pressure on the queen. So rook to h1, not waiting for the queen to be moved and then something like queen captures on g3. He just goes for the straight counter, rook to h1, as he is up a full rook. Why wouldn't he? Queen to d7. Of course, Alireza cannot trade. His only hope is to checkmate that white king, or somehow win at least a little bit of material back. Queen to e4 attacks the knight, and now king to g8. Also, what are you going to play? If you go for queen captures on b5 check, king e3, and now after queen to b3 check, you're going to play queen to d3, block everything. You cannot capture the bishop because of checkmate on h7. So you're going to have to trade queens because the knight is hanging, and now you're just down a full rook. Of course, you cannot play this. So after queen e4, king to g8 was played, but now it's all over. King to e3, knight to d4, and here bishop captures on d4 was played, and it was in this position on move 45 that Alireza Firouzja resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So yeah, the tradition continues. The history repeats itself. Nepo takes down Alireza in the candidates tournament. Now it's 3-0 in the candidate tournament games. Nepo versus Alireza. Definitely, not pleasant for Alireza. And here you resign. Well, there's no way to continue, actually. Once you capture that bishop, you can even play king captures, and you can give some checks. Let's say queen g6 check. Okay, one thing you don't do is play queen e5, because then rook to c4 check, and you lose your queen. Okay, it's still a draw, but not the best. And after king e3, let's say rook c3 check, you're going to play king d2. No more checks, and now it's white who starts checking, and that black king will get checkmated very, very quickly. So, of course, Alireza not about to wait for that. After bishop captures on d4, he resigns. And yeah, another decisive game, third decisive game that we are showing. And we're also going to, I'm most likely going to show Caruana versus Nijat Abbasov, but probably tomorrow, as it's already 3 a.m. at the time I'm recording this. You know, I'm in Croatia, the tournament is being played in Canada. So, yeah, that's a little bit weird. But yeah, very nicely done by Nepo. And yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of player that Nepo is. You surprise him, you prepare, you know, a disgusting engine line for him, and he just plays faster than you. I mean, no wonder the man won the candidates tournament twice in a row, and it's not going to be easy to stop him this time. As you've seen, he's very in incredible form, taking down Alireza like this. And also an interesting little info that I picked up. The final round of the candidates tournament will be Nepomniachtchi versus Fabiano Caruana. Fabi will have the white pieces, so that could also be one of the games that decides the winner of the candidates tournament. Not sure if they did this on purpose, you know, as Fabi is the highest rated and Nepo is the previous winner. But you know, regardless, very much looking forward to that. I'm very much looking forward to all the rounds and all the games. But yeah, I just like to additionally mention that I'm also looking forward to that. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not gonna spoil the result of the final game that I still haven't shown, as I'm probably gonna show it. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I would like to thank Andreas Rosenthal, David Gasparian, Derek King, Henry Hunt, and Max End for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.